Hello, everybody. Welcome to Taiwan. It's actually a little bit late, like 10 p.m. So from the Taiwanese audience, thank you so much for staying up later with us. My name is Linien, a woman and I ambassador in Taiwan. Tonight, we have such a great honor to have Joe Ye, the CEO of aetherAI company, on board with us, giving us the speech of embracing future of AI-powered medical imaging. He is going to share the real-life cases to tell us how AI has impact on the clinical decision-making process. So that's welcome, Joe.
All right. Thank you, Linien, for the introduction. So I'm Joe, co-founder and CEO of aetherAI. We're a medical image AI company. It's a great pleasure here to be able to share with you some of the progress we've been making with medical image AI here in Taiwan. So first, I would like to briefly introduce our company. aetherAI was founded in October 2015, and now we have over 50 employees. So the company is dedicated to developing digital pathology system and digital pathology AI models. Through partnership with medical centers in Taiwan and US, we have more than 15 ongoing medical image AI projects. What's special about our team is that we have a few medical doctors on the team, actually 6, including one intern who just graduated this year. Having medical doctors on the team is absolutely crucial to developing AI products that are close to clinical needs. Here's the outline of the talk today. I'll begin with some introduction to AI, and then I'll follow up with use cases of digital pathology AI we've actually been making in aetherAI, and also one radiology AI example. And I'll finish up with prospects and challenges with making medical image AI products. First, introduction to AI. AI is not a very new word. The term was first coined in 1956 by computer science luminaries in Dartmouth AI workshop. In its early days, AI was mostly known for expert system. Expert system is a very general idea in which human beings try to summarize their knowledge by using programming languages, so that computer systems can behave intelligently like human beings. A subset is called machine learning, in which algorithm is responsible for learning the relationship between data, meaning input and output. So in a typical machine learning workflow, experts will begin by analyzing data, extract features, turn them into numerical features, and then feed these numerical data to machine learning algorithm so the algorithm can learn the input, the relationship between input and output. So for example, the input could mean the numerical features of medical images. The output could mean diagnosis. A yet smaller subset is called representation learning, in which machine learning is responsible for most of the learning. So experts do not have a role in cleaning data. Their only role is to provide correct annotation for data. So for example, when you're trying to teach a machine learning algorithm to learn the representation of image, experts no longer have to perform feature extraction, but rather they rely on the machine learning algorithm to learn the relationship between input and output. The smallest subset, also part of the representation learning, is called deep learning. And it's actually the driving force behind the latest wave of AI revolution. So it is also the core of a lot of new startups in recent few years. Deep learning is very different from image processing. So in a traditional workflow, if we're trying to distinguish two images, for example, on the left-hand side here, we have a lymphocyte. On the right-hand side, we have neutrophil. In a traditional image processing workflow, for us to differentiate between the two images, we begin by asking experts what are the most important features to separate the two images. So experts might conclude that these two cells have a very different nucleus to cytoplasm ratio. Then we design image processing algorithm by first segmenting cell contour and followed by segmenting nucleus contour, from which we can then calculate an NC ratio and then set a threshold so that we can differentiate between the two cell types. Deep learning workflow is a very different one. So we no longer ask experts what are the most important features that could separate two cells. We only ask them the right answer to the images. So for example, we might ask experts to label 5,000 images of lymphocyte, another 5,000 images of neutrophils, and then we let deep learning to take over all the learning tasks. So image processing is more easily understood by human beings, while deep learning is more like a black box process where the experts only provide answers and the deep learning algorithm is responsible for learning all the representation of knowledge. In the past several years, it has been proven by the research community that deep learning algorithm, or say deep neural network, has superior performance over image processing workflow. The most prominent event for the computer vision research community is in 2012, where deep learning-based algorithm beat all traditional image processing algorithm in ImageNet classification contest. Ever since 2012, deep learning has never lost a battle. Another landmark event happened in 2015, where deep learning algorithm actually surpassed human being in the performance of image recognition task. It was from 2015 that a lot of startup companies emerged, because now AI has been proven very useful in taking over some of the tasks that was previously always done by human beings. Medical image research was no exception. So since 2015, a lot of medical image AI research has been going on. The most famous one was done by Google. So they show that computer vision deep neural network can learn to recognize diabetic retinopathy by training on 200,000 color fundus images. And the performance of AI has been surpassing human doctors since in the task of diagnosing diabetic retinopathy. And also, a research group in Stanford has shown that AI can recognize skin disease by looking at dermoscope images and perform better than Stanford dermatologists. Another popular application is for AI to detect lung nodule in low-dose chest CT. It is a very tedious task for human beings. A low-dose lung CT can constitute 500 cuts. Reading through the CT images is a very tedious task. And nowadays, a lot more healthy people undergo low-dose CT examinations, and AI has been very useful in this image recognition task. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the real use cases of digital pathology AI we've been working on at aetherAI. First, some brief history of pathology. The foundation of modern pathology was established in the later 19th century. So pathology deals with the cutting tissues into thin slices and looking at these thin slices under a microscope so that doctors can make a final diagnosis of disease. Tissue is soft. It is very difficult to cut them into thin pieces, so they have to be embedded in paraffin wax. This technique was invented in 1869 by Edwin Klebs. Tissue does not have a lot of contrast. It has to be stained by chemicals so that the cells can be easily visualized. The most prevalent staining technique, H&E, was introduced by Wysowski in 1876. And the compound microscope was invented in 1620s. The reason I brought up these years is because the techniques have been the same for the past 150 years for pathology. Is there going to be problems? Of course. So, first of all, early and small lesions for pathogens could easily be missed. So pathologists have to look for small bacteria and isolated tumor cells and lymph node micrometastasis of breast cancer on a daily basis. It is a very exhausting job. Sometimes a tissue can only have a few cells. And so after one day of exhausting job, sometimes they could miss those small lesions. Second, they very often have to report the quantitative measurement of immunohistochemistry. So for example, on the right-hand side is a tissue stain for PD-L1. Pathologists are asked to report the percentage of cells stained positive for this antibody. Very often they just eyeballing it, meaning they're guessing or just get a feeling of it instead of actually counting individual cells because it is just too time consuming. So we can know that the reading is very inefficient and the consequences could be potentially inaccurate diagnosis. What are the solutions? Is digital pathology the solution? No, if anything, it could only exacerbate the problem because now the images are being documented. So we firmly believe that the combination of digital pathology and AI is the solution to the problem I just mentioned. So now I bring you to the use case one. This is a differential counting AI model for bone marrow smear. When patients are suspected of having blood cancer, doctors will perform bone marrow smear, or say bone marrow aspiration. This is a procedure where doctors stick a steel needle into the bone and draw some bone marrow and smear it on slide and perform differential counting. This is a very tedious task, and it requires years of training. And now I think the world is in shortage of experts that can perform differential counting for bone marrow reliably. We collaborated with National Taiwan University Hospital and collect slide images from 1,000 patients at 1,000-fold magnification. And to train AI, we have annotated 500,000 cells so that we can train deep neural network to recognize cells. This is an example of bone marrow smear image. As you can see, the cells are packed, and there are up to 40 different kind of categories of cells in bone marrow smear. This is a highly challenging image recognition task, even for the trained expert. So for this task, we trained a convolutional neural network for instant segmentation. We combined features from many state-of-the-art neural network so that they can perform the job well. This is an example of annotated image. Again, this is a very tedious job. So we have more than 10 people working on annotation. So for individual cells, they have to outline the contour and label the cell category. We have been doing this for 500,000 cells, and now the number is still increasing. This is some quick statistics of the annotated cells, and you can see that it is a very challenging task. So now for the 14 major categories, for each category, we have annotated thousands and thousands of cells. But this is absolutely necessary to train a deep neural network to recognize cells reliably. This is the confusion matrix for the deep neural network in image recognition task. So now we have achieved over 94.8% in average accuracy. This is the world's first AI model that can perform bone marrow differential counting at such high accuracy. This is validation results. You can see that on a new image, the AI model can correctly identify cells and label them according to their training. So you can see this is the classification results. This is what the entire product looks like. So we use a small camera to capture digital images from microscope and send it to the edge AI compute device so that AI can perform differential counting on the field of view in just a few seconds and give the summarized result to experts. Now the product is entering multinational, multi-center clinical trial. The second use case is for detection of nasopharyngeal carcinoma in whole slide images. We started this project 2 years ago because adoption of digital pathology is slow. We want to find a value-add application so that hospitals were more interested in adopting a digital workflow. So in this task, we're trying to train an AI model to look at whole slide images, essentially nasopharyngeal specimen, and detect the presence of cancer cells. This is done in collaboration with Chang'an Memorial Hospital. We use 720 cases for this AI model. 360 cases are cancer patients. The other 360 cases are normal patients. For this work, we train a two-stage deep neural network model. Whole slide images have very high spatial resolution, so we have to divide images into small patches. So in each patch, we teach AI to recognize, and then it can classify image into one of the three categories, meaning background, benign, and cancer. The AI model reached a AURLC of 0.9952, roughly 99% accuracy, after training on close to 10 million patches. After whole slide images is inferenced by AI, whole slide images then turn into a small image where each pixel representing the classification probability of one of the three categories. So a large image is turned to a small image. We then train a second slide level model so that the AI will answer the final question, whether the slide contains cancer or not. After training on 600 slides, the AI performed on 100 testing slides and reached AURLC of 0.98, roughly 98% accuracy. This is the RLC curve right here. So the curve represents AI performance in recognizing cancer from whole slide images. These crosses are the performance of human beings. As you can see, there's still 4 human doctors that are performing better than the AI model. Only 2 trainees perform poorer than the AI model we trained. But our intention was not to replace doctors, but rather we're trying to teach AI models to help human doctors to read more efficiently. So AI will highlight cancerous areas and color it by red so that doctors can easily visualize cancerous area. This is one of the cases where AI is very helpful. So as you can see right here, this is the nasal specimen. Doctors have to look at the entire nasal specimen and then look for the presence of cancer. This is a particular challenging case where the specimen contains only a small area of cancer. So there's a red overlaid area. This is the area picked up by AI model that signifies that there's presence of cancer cells. When the doctor is opening the slide, he can jump right into the lesion highlighted by AI and saving minutes of precious time. This is another case where AI can be extra helpful. So in the entire nasopharyngeal specimen, there's only 3 lesions of cancer present, very small lesions. And this is actually the case where most of the junior doctors misdiagnose because there are so few cancer cells present. But again, AI is highlighting these cancer lesions in a very colorful way so that doctors can focus on these lesions. So this is where AI helps the most in the challenging case. Also, AI does a much better job at quantifying tissue areas. So very often doctors are asked to provide a quantitative measurement of tumor purity, meaning the area percentage of tumor versus normal tissue. Doctors can only eyeball it, where AI can actually perform a very accurate quantitative counting. And then let's move on to the use case of radiology AI. So this is an example of analysis of orthopedic radiograph. Prior to orthopedic surgeries, some patients actually have to undergo whole spine lateral radiograph so that spine surgeons can perform quantitative analysis of the spinal curve. This again is a very tedious job, and through collaboration with Chang'an Memorial Hospital, we're trying to teach AI model to recognize key points so AI can perform automatic measurement of orthopedic radiograph. This is an example of the parameter of the spine that doctors have to measure prior to spinal surgeries. So to measure all these parameters, doctors have to identify 25 key points in a whole spine lateral radiograph. This usually takes up to 15 minutes for a spinal surgeon to complete all the measurement of the parameters. So we hope to teach AI to recognize this so that they can save the precious time of spinal surgeons. For this task, we will make a new model, a RescueNet for key point detection. So initially, we're trying to teach AI to recognize 25 key points or 25 landmarks. So they can learn all the 25 landmarks in one go. So we train AI on 2,000 fully annotated whole spine lateral radiograph. In the end, we actually had to annotate 49 points because now in the thoracic spine, the AI sometimes lose track of all the spines. This is a result of the trained AI model. So we take a 2-stage approach, first training AI to produce a coarse heat map of all the spinal landmark, and then we refine the heat map using the second stage. This is the final prediction. On the right-hand side, you can see the red dot, meaning the annotation provided by surgeons, and the red dot is the prediction made by AI. This is an interesting example right here because human doctors actually made a mistake. So in the last segment of lumbar spine, probably he's tired, he made a wrong annotation, but AI still made a pretty accurate prediction of the lumbar spine. After AI is trained to recognize all the key points, it can then generate all the measurement automatically within just a few seconds. And this is how accurate our AI model is. So it achieved localization error of, on average, 2 millimeters. So all these numbers represent localization error for individual spinal segment. So compared to 1-point-something meter of human height, the AI model has achieved very high accuracy in terms of detecting key points in spines. And this is an example of AI performing automatic measurement of the spinal parameters. So after detecting the key points, it can then draw lines and measure all the angles that you have to measure for a spine. And then you can see the AI is not confused by the those cages that surgeons have put in. One aspect, or say one advantage of using AI over the manual method is that AI can very easily also generate a measurement of spinal curve. After the key points are detected by AI, we can then fit a curve and try to figure out what a spinal curve for a human being is. And from this, we can very easily calculate the inflection point. So with this tool in hand, we can very easily measure the spinal curve of thousands and thousands of people and actually get a more accurate and quantitative understanding of the human spinal curve. This has never been possible without this kind of quantitative tool. Now, the last part of my talk focus on the challenges and prospects of medical image AI. So in the past several years, we have been faced with a lot of challenges when making medical image AI. So as I mentioned, AI model is trained on vast number of correctly annotated medical images. So data collection is a very tiresome process. We have to negotiate with hospitals and try to streamline the data collection process. And even more difficult is trying to convince doctors to spend time in annotate images so that AI models can learn. Without annotations, AI models cannot be trained. So this is still the most important bottleneck for medical image AI. And also, AI is a very resource-intensive endeavor. So along the way, we have to figure out a lot of different ways to aggregate resource, human resource, financial resource, computing resource, partnership, so that we can collect enough data and have enough computer resource so that we can train a good AI model. And also, medical image AI is actually a medical device. So for it to be marketed, it has to undergo validation process, and it has to be approved by regulatory agencies. So many of our products are now entering into the process or the phase of clinical trial. And now we're working closely with regulatory agencies to figure out the appropriate validation process so that we can be approved to sell those products. So the regulatory agencies have to make sure that the medical image AI products are safe, and we know the limits of the medical image AI products so that we're not misled by the readings made by AI. And also for doctors, it is very important that these AI models are integrated nicely into the workflow so that their efficiency of work is actually enhanced. And also most important for companies are trying to figure out an appropriate business model where we can generate sustainable income. AI is a very expensive thing to make. So we actually need to come up with a very nice business model to sustain the production of AI. This is the last slide. But we're very excited about the future because with the promise of AI, we see a faster pace of digitization. So for example, hospitals are now more interested in adopting a digital workflow for pathology. This has never happened before, but now with AI, hospitals are very interested. And also, we do not intend to replace doctors by creating AI, but rather we're foreseeing that laborious manual tasks will be assisted by AI, so doctors will have a better life. And also, with help of AI, results will be available faster, meaning better care for patients. And also, AI brings improved and consistent quality of reading, and also generate accurate and quantitative readout. For many of the medical image analysis tasks, the readout is qualitative but not quantitative. But now with AI, they can become quantitative. One more interesting aspect of AI is that sometimes it can bring new insights to human beings so that there's hope of actually improving medical care because of the new insights brought by AI. And lastly, AI is but a program.
Okay,
so
we still have a little bit more time.
The world. All right. Okay. Now this is the last slide, and I welcome questions. Thank you.
Actually, Joe, I do see the questions from the audience. And that's, I don't know if Sunny is a female, male. Anyway, I did not quite understand the second stage description. Could you mention the stage 1 and 2 again?
Sure. So let me go back to the slide here. So whole slide images are too big, so we have to divide it into small patches. So some people call it patch-based method. So we first teach AI to recognize the tissue in small image patches, typically 256 by 256 pixels. So AI will learn to determine whether this patch represents background, meaning no tissue, or benign or cancerous tissue. After AI processes this small patch, it'll generate number, meaning the classification probability for this small patch. So the large image is then reduced to a smaller image, again with each pixel representing classification probability for each image patch. Then we train another model to look at this reduced image and then determine whether the slide contains cancer or not. This is the two-stage approach.
I'm not quite sure if we still have more time, but just one question, my personal question. You mentioned that the other challenges that you have at the very last slide, but I also wonder if you also find it challenging, also find it difficult to find somebody like you. You know, you have a medical background, but also you have a coding background, and I know that you learned the coding by yourself. So I just wonder, but over the time, aetherAI company has been it's 5 years old now. I'm pretty sure that during these 5 years, you probably have some challenges finding the talent like you, right?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I would say yes, but now things are changing. So right now, we actually have 6 medical doctors on the team. So a lot of medical graduates are now being more interested in learning AI. So now we are seeing an increase of talent that have training in both medicine and computer programming. So I see that as a very promising trend.
Okay, that's good. Well, I'm actually surprised. Thank you so much, Joe. Really,
no problem. You're very welcome.
Really, medical is one thing hard enough. One field that's hard enough, and plus AI, I think it's a little bit challenging. But you explaining so well that even I'm not a professional, but I do understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, so I think our time is up. So thank you so much. Thank you, Taiwan audience, and thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, do you mind, Joe, that you just leave a little bit like a message on the message on stage here, so that people can
on stage here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So feel free to email this info@aetherai.com. All right.
Yeah. Because somebody was asking if they can, if you can share your slides with them, and I'm not quite sure if you can, but anyway, I think if you just leave a message there, they can reach you out for that.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good night, Joe.
No problem.